This is Richard Jacobs from iduiattorney.org, and I'm here today with Mark Taiani, DUI lawyer, criminal lawyer out of Pennsylvania. How you doing, Mr. Taiani?
Good, good. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. And if you don't mind, let me just get started with the questions.
Sure, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay. My first question is, what makes you choose to handle DUI cases, and what motivated you in the beginning to be a criminal defense attorney?
I've been practicing now a little over 10 years, and it actually all started when a couple of my good friends got pulled over by the police, and I was just starting to getting involved in doing criminal work. And they asked me, "Hey, Mark, can you handle these cases?" And I said, "Sure, I'll give it a shot." And actually, from that, it was you pick up a lot of information from it, and it was very enjoyable. The criminal practicing criminal law is very enjoyable for me because I get a chance to go to court every single day. I meet clients. I actually do legal pleading. It's a little bit of everything. So it's very exciting. Also knowing that you're helping somebody out who's gone through a very difficult time period in their life. They normally have additional problems, and we try and help them through those problems, normally alcohol related or whatever it is that led them to drink and drive. And we want to help them so that they don't lose their job, that they don't lose their license. See what we can do to help them move through, get through this difficult time in their life. And it's actually very enjoyable seeing that after it's resolved, that they're not really, nailed to the cross, if you will.
Okay. And for DUI specifically, how many cases have you handled, and in what time period?
Sure. We normally, on a monthly basis, my office, we normally do anywhere between 10 to 20 cases a month. And those all range from either being first-time offenders to multiple offenders. Somebody, I've represented people with as many as 8 DUIs in their past before. So, I mean,
Wow.
it's significant. So I would say it breaks down pretty evenly, but for the most part, about 10 to 20 DUI cases on a monthly basis.
Okay. And is there any typical circumstance of your cases? Do you have more first-time offenders, or more men and women, or older people, or?
Well, one thing about DUI cases that I found is it pretty much breaks down evenly across the spectrum, but it seems to be, for the most part, the people who get in most of the trouble, it seem to be younger individuals who are just learning about breaking in, driving, and they're coming out of college, and they're used to probably walking from campus, after they're drinking. Now they get in the cars. Can't do that in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. If you have anything in your system, they'll hammer you with the DUI. And traditionally, I would say, 50% of the individuals we represent tend to be first-time offenders. And luckily, there are programs out there to keep those people out of jail, and also to help move to expunge their criminal records if they have for these type of charges. For the most part, I'd say splits about evenly. 50% are first-time offenders, 50% are basically reoccurring offenders. And what you try and do is help both. And each case is unique unto itself. So depending upon what your facts and your circumstances are, we would then talk to you what your options are.
Right. Okay. Do you have more clients that have a high blood alcohol level, or a lot of people that are close to the 0.08 limit?
Well, it's pretty amazing. It all depends upon, a lot of the blood alcohol level, the VAC content, is based upon your body weight, your height, your size, and how many alcoholic drinks you've had. So I'll give you an example where somebody who's 5 foot, 5'2", only weighs 100 pounds, versus, they can normally, anything, if they have even one drink, they're over the limit in Pennsylvania. Whereas if you have a person who's like 6'6", who's like close to 300 pounds, it normally takes at least 2 and 2.5, 3 drinks to get them over the limit. So it depends on where you're at. But for the most part, if you're anywhere even close, if you're .08 in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they will charge you. It doesn't make a difference who you are or what you do. So if you're close, they will absolutely charge you. So what we look at is see obviously what the VAC level is, and based on that, we'll have a conversation. What is your best possible route to defend against these charges?
Okay. Do you see a lot of DUI cases due to drugs, or more due to alcohol? And out of the drug cases, is it harder or easier to defend those?
Well, once again, it's all case specific. But I will say, in the last two to 3 years, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and police and the district attorney's offices are starting to prosecute individuals for DUIs for individuals who have over-the-counter medication or have prescribed medication. Or a lot of the times they would say, okay, this is not our standard type of DUI. When you think of DUI, you're thinking driving, drinking and driving, going to a bar, leaving. Well, a lot of these people are taking over-the-counter medication, or they're mixing it with their prescribed medication, and that in itself is a cocktail that you can be charged with a DUI on, and that's happening a lot more now. Now, defending against that is there are ways to defend against both types, both alcohol and that of the drugs, whether
Right.
it's prescribed or illicit drugs. But in any event, there are standards that the state uses to make a determination of what level, where do you fall on that line, if you will, if you're on the lower end or if you're on the higher end. And basically it comes down to blood tests and also, what exactly evidence do they have? So in the end, once again, it's case specific and based on the evidence that the district attorney and the police have. But lately there have been a lot more cases that are coming to us that are drug related, not just illicit drugs, whether it's marijuana in the system, say you smoke a blunt from, hell, 2-3 weeks ago, it's still showing up in your system, and then they can still charge you.
Really?
Or
Okay.
attempt to charge you for a DUI, but we can defend against that. What we have to do is, once again, it's case specific, but the individuals must be aware that the Commonwealth, the state, can and will charge you with a DUI if there's anything in your system, whether
Okay.
illegal or legal.
All right. Well, you may have covered this, but what's unique about the DUI laws in your particular counties and state and areas you service?
Well, the one thing about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is unique, back in February of 2004, that is when the DUI laws in Pennsylvania changed and it became a lot harsher. There are a lot more mandatory sentences that are being handed down from what it used to be. Now, one of the biggest differences between wherever you go, so give me an example. We're located in Pittsburgh, which is within Allegheny County.
Right.
Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, which is the court system within our county, is prescribed to do certain things, as is every other county in Pennsylvania. So in other words, there's 67 counties in PA. We have the same sentencing and the same law for every county. But any county that you're in handles it slightly different. Give me one example. In Allegheny County, you can apply for, if you're a second or third time offender, for electronic monitoring. In other words, it's basically you'd have an ankle bracelet. In lieu of going to jail, you can petition the court if you meet certain qualifications then agreed upon by the court to have electronic monitoring, which means you don't go to jail, but rather you wear an ankle bracelet.
Okay.
Whereas in some counties, they don't have the basically the setup, they don't have the bracelets, they don't have the funding for that. So you don't have an option. If you're in one of the smaller counties, the only option that they prescribe to you is that of jail. So it's imperative to know which county you're in and what options you have. Because if you think you're just going to cut a plea and you're going to get electronic monitoring and it's going to work out or just some probation, it's not necessarily the case. So in the end, what you have to have is an attorney who is familiar with each county in which the DUI takes place. Because there's no rhyme or reason why one county offers one offer or plea and another county does not. In other words, even though the law states X, the county can determine what they can basically, the biggest difference is if you're going to go to jail or if you're not, and what alternatives do they have, and what you can get. And that's only going to be known by your attorney. Because in reality, if you're going in, you're a layperson, you don't know what the district attorney is going to offer you, and you don't know if that's a legitimate deal or if you can do any better. And no one's going to tell you unless you retain counsel.
Okay, fair enough. So what would be your best tip when someone's been driving and the lights come on behind them, and they may have had a drink or so? What should they do? What shouldn't they do as they're being pulled over?
Well, the first thing I tell, obviously, they shouldn't even be in the car to begin with. You should, if you're deciding you're going to drink at all, you should not be in a car. The only reason you should be in a car is if you're in the back seat or in the passenger seat. Even one drink it basically, for most people, puts you over the limit for the purposes of driving in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so in order to avoid all this, you shouldn't even be in a car. Get a taxi, walk, ride a bike, have a friend drive, whatever you need to. Don't get in the car if you know you're going to drink. And even if you do drink, Whatever you do, if you're going to stay in your car overnight, don't put your keys in the ignition. But let's say you're pulled over, there's some alcohol in your system, you see the lights come on. The most important thing you can do is you basically cooperate with the police, and that you turn on your dome light in your vehicle, you pull off to a safe area, so
Right.
so there's no problems with the police getting in and out. If you're on a busy highway, try and pull off if there is one. Open your window. When the officer, do not look for your license or registration or anything until the officer approaches the vehicle. Once the officer then asks, for your license and registration, you tell the officer what you're going to do before you do it. In other words, if your license is in your pocket, you're going to say, "Officer, my license is in my front right pocket. I'd like to take it out and hand it to you." You tell the officer what you're going to do before you do it, so that the officer doesn't think you're grabbing for something. Because one of the things the police do, they want to protect their safety, and they don't know who you are. It's a random traffic stop. They don't know who you could be. So
Right.
you take your time, you hand the information. Don't try and don't panic as best you can, and don't make small talk. Ask him what he wants. Provide it to the officer, and then whatever you do not make any statements against your own interest. Do not tell the officer anything. If he specifically asks, just say, comply with his request, but don't make any admission. If the officer asks that if you've been drinking, say, just make no comment at that point. You do not have to make a statement to the police.
But what if he says to you, "Okay, have you been drinking?" Literally, what do you say? Just nothing, or?
Well, I mean, if the officer goes down, obviously once you make that statement, the next step would be you'll probably be taken out of the car and asked to do a field sobriety test. My recommendation is that you do not make any statements at all to the police. If they ask, you comply with all of their requests and follow through. The most important thing is in order to fight a DUI, you need it. The facts are going to be against you possibly, and so will the testimony of this police officer. So the best thing you can do is limit as much information evidence they have. So in other words, don't give them any additional help. If they have anything, you don't have to make a statement to the police. And my recommendation is you comply with their requests.
Right.
Whatever they do, you comply with it. You do it, but you don't give them additional information or supporting documentation or evidence that you've been drinking. If they ask, you should ask for to speak with your attorney. Now,
Okay.
the DUI stop, it's not a necessary requirement. They don't have to allow you to talk with an attorney. They can book you, they can do whatever. But if you're intending on fighting it, the best thing you can do is comply with their requests, but don't give any statement. And then when you have an opportunity, speak with legal counsel immediately.
Have you had a case where someone, I guess, quote unquote, did a really good job and said pretty much nothing to the police? What happened?
Well, once a police officer basically pulls you over, and if they believe that you've been drinking, more than likely you're going to be taken out for you're going to do a field sobriety test, and you're going to have either a breathalyzer done or blood work done. The other reason why, as long as you comply with the police, they'll probably cut you loose that evening, and you're not going to spend the entire evening or the weekend in the county jail. If you cause the police problems and object to everything that they're doing and don't comply with their requirements, they can make life very miserable for you. They'll take you to the county and they can hold you up to 3 days in the county jail that day. And so my recommendation is, as long as you comply with that, then you're okay. The place to fight your DUI is not when you're getting pulled over. The place to fight it is in the court. And that's why the courts are set up. So you can, if they're doing something illegal, we'll fight it and we'll go through that. We'll go through that with you, with our client.
Okay.
The most important thing is to make sure that you comply with the requests by the police.
Right.
Don't provide them with any additional information.